Hello and welcome to the Smells Like Infinite Sadness podcast. I'm your host, Michael Taylor. For those of you who don't know, I run the website, smellslikeinfinitesadness.com. It's a blog covering the best alternative rock from the 80s and 90s up to present day. I'm a proud middle-aged Gen Xer who is still obsessed with the music of his youth and loves to talk about it. This week I've got a very special guest. I'll be talking to James Stevenson. He's a guitarist who's worked with a host of veteran punk, new wave, and alternative acts over the years. He's probably best known as a guitar player for Gene Loves Jezebel, but he's also worked with The Alarm, Chelsea, The International Swingers, The Cult, and Holy Holy, a supergroup performing the works of the late David Bowie. James is looking back on his body of work with a new album entitled 40 Years in the Rock and Roll Wilderness that's coming out April 27th on Pink Gun Records. That features contributions from all of the aforementioned groups, along with other tracks from the likes of Tricky, Generation X of Billy Idol, Kim Wilde, and a ton of others. James and I discussed the new album, from how hard it was to narrow down such a vast body of work, some of the stories behind some of the tracks, which will be in an upcoming book. We also discussed some 2018 tour plans for Gene Loves Jezebel and The Alarm, and much more. So sit back and enjoy the interview, and I'll be back afterwards to play a song off the new album.
I did an interview with you before, right? A few years ago.
Yeah, that's right. I think it was about 4 years ago.
I noticed you had a list of in fact, Mike Peters has just asked me, you had a list on your site of the 50 most underrated guitarists of all time, and I was on there. Billy Duffy was like number 6.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that was one of the first things.
And Mike said, Mike Peters asked me if Dave Sharp was on there. You remember? It isn't. Anyway.
Whoops. Yeah, sorry, Dave Sharp. Well, so I've been having a chance to listen to the double album. I've been enjoying it a lot. I really have been kind of have a blast getting to go through all the different tracks and everything. And I was kind of struck. You've done so many different kind of works, different artists and bands and all that. When did you decide to start making this album, and how hard was it to come up with a final track listing? How intensive was that?
I started, to be honest, it's kind of a vanity project in a way, but I started thinking about it like probably 3 years ago. And then I started putting it together and, deciding what to put on it. I would have loved to have had a Scott Walker track on there. There's a lot of other stuff that I've done, but I wanted to limit it to 2 CDs. And, the hardest part of all was dealing with because some of the tracks I had to license in from major labels. And that was just the hardest part because dealing with those people, it's just a miracle they're in business at all. And the music industry is so tough anyway compared to how it used to be. And then dealing with these people you're trying to give them money, they won't call you back. It's just unbelievable. But we got there in the end. So, yeah. And the track listing kind of changed all the time. There's a track on there called Big Tears, which was a band I had with Glenn Matlock with a singer called Gary Holton, who's probably more famous in the UK, but he was in kind of a legendary pre-punk band called the Heavy Metal Kids. And I think in America they were just called the Kids. And he was quite a successful actor as well. And he actually he OD'd in just when I first started my first Gene Loves Jezebel tour in 1985. He was only 33. But we did these demos. We did 3 songs with him, and none of them have ever seen the light of day. So I just decided at the last minute to put that track Big Tears on there, which is it's never been released before. So
I was actually going to mention that. It's probably one of my favorite songs off the album. It's so catchy.
I like it.
It's got a really good energy to it. So I was actually familiar with him as well. So were you planning on working with him more before he passed away, or was it kind of like a one-off thing that you guys did together?
No. Working, me, him, Glenn, and who else was in the band? A guy called James Hallowell, a keyboard player, and a drummer called Dave McIntosh. And in fact, we had the same manager that Gene Loves Jezebel had. That's how I ended up in Gene Loves Jezebel. But we were did these 3 demos, and we were putting together, it was going to be a proper band. And we had at a rehearsal, and we had a very famous A&R guy called Muff Winwood, who's actually Steve Winwood's brother. He came down to see us rehearse on a Friday, and he just loved it. And he just looked around at our manager and says, "Call me Monday, tell me how much it's going to cost," And then he got fired on Monday. So that was the end of that.
Oh, no.
And then literally a week later or 2 weeks later, Gene Loves Jezebel was starting their first tour of the US, and their guitar player had a massive nervous breakdown. and our manager said, "You've got to go out and save this tour." So, and then literally a month after that, I heard that Gary died. So it all happened in, very, very, very close time wise.
And you mentioned how it was kind of hard getting all the licensing together, but was it kind of fun going back and kind of going through your musical history and picking through the, your years, all the different artists? Was that?
It's so much fun. I mean, there's a track on there by a guy called Henry Badowski, who I was actually at school with him, and we were really good friends. We were in bands at school together, and he made one solo album for A&M Records, and then he hated the music business and just got out of it. But he made this one album called Life is a Grand, and it's kind of a legend. He still has a cult following on the internet, and I hadn't listened to that album for a long time. I was deciding which track to put on mine, and I just went for the Baby Hit Sign Here With Me, which was the first single. And it's such an amazing track. And I was like 19 when I played guitar on it. So it's kind of interesting for me to go back through a lot of this stuff retrospectively and just listen to things I hadn't listened to for a long time.
And I was, looking back at all the stuff you've done. I mean, you've got so many different artists you've worked with. Were there any kind of favorite anecdotes that you think about when you were working this album, that kind of memories that came flooding back of like some funny stuff that happened or some infamous things?
I mean, every band, there's something funny happened every session. There's always, I mean, I'm writing a book at the moment that's also called 40 Years in the Rock and Roll Wilderness, which there'll be lots and lots of stories in that, But people, I mean, I couldn't think of just one. And lots of people have said to me, well, how come you haven't got a Cult track on there? And I'm like, I never recorded with the Cult. I went on tour with them, but I never recorded with them. So this is all like stuff that I've that I've actually recorded on, so yeah, I mean, oh God, I mean, just think of all the times I spent in, Chelsea, Generation X, Gene Loves Jezebel. I've got a million funny stories, but everyone's going to have to wait for my book for that stuff.
Okay. Well, also, I was wondering, because you work with The Alarm, Generation X, Tricky, Kim Wilde, Gene Loves Jezebel, and I was kind of curious, do you like playing with so many different artists? Is that by necessity, or do you just have a real need to work with a bunch of different artists kind of for your creativity's sake, or why have you decided to be so prolific as far as, and collaborated with so many different musicians?
Well, one thing, I mean, I think it's good for you playing, to play with different people. I mean, when I played with Tricky, I mean, he had a very, very different way of working compared to anyone else. Anyone else that I'd worked for before that was like, here's the song, this is the chorus, can you play some chords here and maybe a guitar solo? But Tricky would just like, and this is in the early 90s, before, when hip hop and trip hop, Max and K is a seminal album, really. And he would just get me to jam through, like, he'd just say, do whatever you want. And, the engineer would play me the track and I'd just do what I want. He'd say, now do whatever you want on an acoustic guitar. Then I'd do that. And then, just sound like a mess. And then he'd go away and find the little bit he liked and loop that in a certain section, and it all, made sense at the end. So, playing with different people is really, really challenging. And now, I mean, it's, if making a living playing music, the only way you can do that is to go out on the road, because you can't sell your music anymore. Even the Rolling Stones can't do that. So, and also, my favorite thing to do is walk on stage and play my guitar. So, it's a bit of a juggling act sometimes, but, I'm getting older, I'm busier than ever. I wouldn't have it any other way.
And I know, because you've got you're still with The Alarm, you're still with Gene Loves Jezebel and Chelsea, do you get something from one band that you don't get from another? Is there kind of different things that feed you creatively between your different acts?
Every band has its own chemistry, in some ways, and playing wise, when I play with Chelsea, it's very, very different to playing with Gene Loves Jezebel or Holy Holy or whatever. And, so, you get different things with the chemistry and the friendships you have with all the people. All the bands, I get on with everyone. And, I've been in bands and I see bands where the people, and you hear that look at Gene Loves Jezebel with Michael and Jay Aston, but, you hear about bands where, certain members didn't get on, and I just think, oh God, that must be just horrible to be in a band like that. Yeah.
And then, you also included the rendition of Bowie's Width of a Circle from Holy Holy, the supergroup that you've joined for Bowie songs. How did you get involved in that? How did that start?
That started because a company. There's an institution in London called the ICA, which stands for the Institute of Contemporary Art, and they were doing a Bowie week, and they wanted a band to play some Bowie songs, and Maggie Ronson, who's Mick Ronson's sister, was kind of in charge of putting it together, and I knew her, and so she asked me to do it. And then it kind of got a little bit big, and then we did a live show actually with Clem Burke playing drums and Steve Norman from Spandau Ballet. And then Woody Woodmansey himself heard about it and wanted to be involved. And then he started playing drums, and then Tony Visconti, got involved. Woody asked him if he wanted to join the band, and we'd go out and do the whole of The Man Who Sold the World in its entirety. And I mean, for me, I'm a huge Mick Ronson fan, so I mean, to play his parts with the people that made the record, it's a great privilege for me. It really is.
So working with Tony, has that been kind of like music lessons in itself, just hearing his stories and anecdotes and all that? What has that been like?
He's incredibly talented as well. And he's, you've got to remember, he's worked with Bowie, T-Rex, all these people. And sometimes we're sitting on the bus and he's telling these stories and I just want to put my phone on record. I just think I better not do that. That's like a betrayal of privacy or secrecy. But no, I absolutely love doing it. I've become actually really good friends with Tony, and he's does sessions, and he's got me down to play on other stuff he's producing. And that's just been awesome. And I actually, when we were doing the new Gene Loves Jezebel record, Dance Underwater, there's one track on there, I don't know if you've heard it, called How Do You Say Goodbye to Someone You Love?
Yeah, I've heard that.
I just thought it would really benefit from having one of Tony's string arrangements on it, because he's classically trained and he writes everything out. And so I spoke to him and I said, there's this one song. And he said, well, send me the track, and I'll see. And I said, we've got no budget. Anyway, I didn't hear back from him, and then I saw him. I was recording. He was producing a girl called Daphne Guinness, and he got me down to play guitar. And I said, "Have you listened to that Gene Loves Jezebel track yet?" And he's like, "Oh, sorry, I haven't listened to it." And I said, "Please listen to it, Tony, because we've nearly finished the album. We need it. If you're going to do it, it'd be great." But anyway, and then he rang me up the next day, and he said, "I love it. I'm going to do it." And he did the string arrangement. I think is incredible, So you can hear that on there.
And speaking of that album, that was I thought it was a really solid album from you guys, and it got pretty good reception. I really enjoyed it a lot. Were you pleased with how that came out? And have you guys started working any new songs or?
We haven't really started working any new songs, but we're doing our first show in the USA, May the 12th. Our first show for about 10 years in America. And yeah, I love the record. I mean, I put it on, I listen to it for pleasure. I think it's a great record. Everyone I play it to is like, wow, that's incredible. And there's a song on it called, a lot of the songs were Pete Rizzo, the bass player, has kind of got much more involved in the creative process. And about 3 or 4 of the songs on the album, Pete and Jay have a side project called The Ugly Bugs.
Yeah, heard it.
Yeah, so I was listening to their record, and there was that track, How Do You Say Goodbye? And I said, that's an incredible song. We should be doing that in Gene Loves Jezebel, And we did it properly with Pete Walsh producing, so, it came out. But Pete's involvement creatively, he used to just be the bass player who turned up, and now he's got much more proactive in the songwriting and all that other stuff, which I wish he'd done that 20 years ago.
Well, speaking about that show, I know that you guys have kind of had issues coming here because of the name with Michael's side of the band and how that's kind of worked out.
So tedious, I mean, Michael, we've got this agreement with him. You can't, so we have to give him 75 days notice, and then it has to be billed as Jay Aston's Gene Loves Jezebel. And, the first ad the promoter put up, he didn't put Jay Aston's, and Michael started making this huge fuss, so we changed it. And we've done everything to try and keep that guy, to follow what he wants. And he has to do the same if he comes to Europe, But, it just seems that he's always pissed off, making a fuss. And I saw something on Facebook, that it was actually his guitar player wrote. It said, break the law, sell a ticket. As if we would try and pretend to be Michael's version of the band to sell a ticket. Yeah, right. Do you know what I mean? So his guitar player, Michael Ciravolo, said that, I'm not going to say anything.
Yeah, it was really strange because I reviewed Dance Underwater, and I've interviewed you and before and Jay, and I've actually gotten several really nasty emails from Michael Aston, who has really kind of gone off on me.
There's something wrong with that guy. That's all I can say.
But do you guys think you might play some more U.S. dates besides that one? Have you guys got any thoughts to do it?
Yeah. There's this other discrepancy, which I don't know if you know about this, but for British bands to come and play in the US, we have to get like an American work permit, which I have a permanent American visa, but, and it's very, very expensive. And for American musicians coming to the UK, they don't have to go through all that. And it's really, really grossly unfair. So we've spent a lot of money getting J and Pete visas. So now, hopefully we're going to exploit it, as much as we can, come there as much as we can. We haven't played them much at all in the past 10 years. We're proud of the new record, and we want as many people to hear it as possible.
Yeah, so last time I saw you guys had to be when you played Austin. That had to be 1990, maybe, for the Kiss of Life tour. I saw you guys at the back room. It was a great show, but
yeah, I remember the back room. We've played in Austin since then because Tim Palmer lives there.
Oh, really?
That he did Kiss of Life, and we did a show there in it must have been in the early 2000s, and I can remember him coming down to that show. So
yeah,
I can't remember who it was.
Yeah, I didn't know he lived here. Well, hopefully you guys can.
A few people live in Austin. Austin's cool.
Yeah, it's got its qualities. Well, I was curious, do you have any other plans musically for the rest of the year besides this album coming out? Any other projects or any tours? Or you say you're about touring with The Alarm right now, right?
Well, yeah, I'm up in North Wales right now rehearsing with The Alarm. In fact, I'm in Mike Peters' office. And I've got loads of stuff with The Alarm. In fact, the Totally 80s Festival in Huntington Beach that I'm doing with Gene Loves Jezebel, I'm doing it with The Alarm on the same day as well.
Wow.
So that's going to... each band's only doing a half an hour set, so it shouldn't be too challenging. And so I've got a lot of Alarm stuff I've got some British dates with The Alarm, and then nothing in the Holy Holy Diary right now, unfortunately. And then I've got some shows with Chelsea in Eastern Europe, actually, at the end of June. Some more stuff with The Alarm in Central Europe in mid-June, and then I'm doing the whole of the summer with The Alarm around the USA. So I'm sure we'll be playing in Austin. You have to come down.
For sure. And
yeah.
And I don't know if it's even possible. Have you given any thought to doing any solo shows for the double album? Would you be able to figure out how to pull that off with different singers, or is that not even?
No, that's just too expensive. I mean, I've had a proper solo album out as well about 3 years ago that I'm really, really proud of, and I've done like 2 solo shows for that, and I've really enjoyed the transition from. I mean, I'm a guitarist. I like to be a sideman, but the transition to being a front man, I thought was going to be really difficult, but I actually really enjoyed it. And I did a couple of shows in London where I did my album in its entirety. But I thought, to do my solo album justice, I need a big band with some girl backing singers. And it just ends up when you're playing to, 150, 200 people, you just can't economically make enough money for it to break even. So I can't, unless I figure out a way to go on the road and so that I can break even and not lose money doing my solo stuff, I probably won't do it, unfortunately. Unless the Rolling Stones ask me to support them or something, it's probably not going to happen.
Well, I think that covers all my questions. So is there anything else you wanted to add as far as the album, or any word as far as when that book might be coming out?
Oh, my book. I mean, I've been writing it for a long time. I've actually got an editor now, a guy called Rob Patterson, who actually lives in Austin as well. And he's been really kicking me up the ass and trying to get me to move on with it. But there's so much, and I kept journals as well. So, reading through those as well. And there's so much stuff in it. So, when I was in the Cult, if Ian Astbury did something crazy, or when I was in Gen X, if Billy Idol said something mad, I mean, I've got it all written down. So, I'm really, and my editor Rob, he's says to me, "You're writing the War and Peace of rock and roll," because usually people want like 80,000 words, and I'm at like twice that, and I'm only halfway through the story. So it's gonna be like that thick, when it finally comes out. But I will get it finished. But I think it's probably at least a year away. But I read it and I send out little excerpts to people that I know, and they're like, "Yeah, it's good. It's a good story."
Well, I can't wait to read that. That sounds like it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think it will be.
Well, thanks for talking to me today.
Get in touch with me. If you see the Alarm when we play in Austin, it'll be sometime in August. Make sure you come down and say hi in person.
Absolutely. That'd be great. All right. Thanks so much.
Cool. Thanks.
Okay.
Speak to you soon.
Okay, bye-bye.
Cheers, mate. Bye.
Thanks to James for taking the time to talk today. It was a pleasure getting to talk to him. You can pre-order his new album, 40 Years in the Rock and Roll Wilderness, via his website, jamesstevenson.info, and keep track of all his other activities there. You can keep track of all things Gene Loves Jezebel at genelovesjezebel.co.uk, and keep track of all the latest Alarm news at thealarm.com. Stay tuned next week when I'll be talking to another exciting guest. I'll be chatting with Tyson Todd Mead, the frontman for the Chainsaw Kittens, who's making a very exciting announcement to the political arena. So we'll be talking to him next week. I'll be excited about that. And as promised, we're going to end the show with playing a new track from his new album, which will be Big Tears. So listen to that, and I'll be back next week. Take care and talk to you soon.
That's the way it's gotta be. big tears gonna fill my